This morning, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson retiring after a half-century in public service. Why she recruited a replacement and a regret she has in her final year in office. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson cleaning up corruption at City Hall, and violent crime down significantly in Dallas. So will Johnson run for re-election himself? Austin Mayor Steve Adler also on our program on his city's plan to hire more police officers. Why it will take longer than many hope. And Matthew Dowd dropping out of the race for lieutenant governor. The filing deadline is tomorrow in Texas. Who's in? Who's out? And what will your ballot look like?
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to our viewers across the state. Let's begin this week with the top political headlines here in Texas. Tomorrow is the filing deadline for any candidate who wants to run in next year's midterm election. There are always some surprises to get into a race or get out of a race. Tomorrow evening, we will know for sure what the ballots will look like across Texas. SB 8 remains the law of the land here in this state. Women cannot get abortions in Texas after a fetal heartbeat is detected. As you know, that was a Republican priority passed in the legislature this summer. And on Friday, the U.S. Supreme Court let that law stand, for now at least. But justices did say that abortion providers can continue to challenge the law in court. And Matthew Dowd is dropping out of the Democratic race for lieutenant governor. It was a short-lived campaign, just about 3 months or so. Officially, Dowd is saying he was stepping back because the race is emerging in a more diverse way. State Rep Michelle Beckley there is running for the seat, and there is chatter that another woman might enter that race as well. Here in Dallas, one woman is leaving Congress, and a number of other women want to replace her. But outgoing Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson specifically recruited one candidate into this race. Johnson chairs the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, and she spoke to us about a number of issues in D.C., including one regret she has going into her final year in office. Madam Chair, welcome to the program, and I guess congratulations are in order, not only for your retirement, but you just had a birthday as well, too, so congratulations on both of those. Let's talk about your retirement for a moment, ma'am. A lot of qualified Democrats are running for the seat that you are vacating. You endorsed, though, pretty quickly, State Representative Jasmine Crockett, a Dallas attorney who served in the state legislature. You endorsed her the very day she announced. Did you speak to her ahead of time and plan to have her to try to succeed you?
I did speak with her earlier. As a matter of fact, I asked her to run because I had looked at an array of candidates. I was looking for a woman who was young, well-prepared, and interested in the work, not just the title. And excuse me, she was the one that came out on top. And so I watched her work. I saw her being honored around the country for her leadership. And I contacted her and I said, I know a lot of people have mentioned running for this office, many of my friends and supporters. I appreciate all of that, but have you considered running? And so she said, I don't know anybody who has not.
Madam Chair, let me ask you about the Senate for a moment. Democrats in the Senate, they have a very narrow majority in the Senate, as everyone knows. You mentioned the Senate a moment ago, and they do not want to eliminate the filibuster in order to pass Democratic ideas. Is that a mistake?
I don't know. I have thought about that so many times, and I have listened to some of the arguments on both sides. They have legitimate concerns on both sides. As you know, this is an electoral body, and the elections come every other year for portions of the Senate and all of the House. We never can predict who is going to have that majority, so you could be placing something where you can have it now, but you're not sure what it'll do for the future. And so the conversations that I've had with a number of senators, there continues to be that little concern. I think, though, however, that the majority of them really want to eliminate it right now because it's being misused as they see it. It's being misused to block major legislation that's a part of this administration.
50 years in public service. I don't mean to date you here, but is there anything legislatively that you didn't get done that you would have liked to have gotten done?
Yes, I think at this point it might be the John Lewis Voting Act. And there are a number of issues that I've worked on but never really got there. But that's what keeps you going. You just keep thinking that the next time you'll do better, the next time you'll do better. But I believe strongly in fairness and justice, and I believe our nation also does. We might be divided on some of the details, but as long as I'm around, I'm going to be pushing those issues. And right now, I really do think that people need to have the opportunity to vote for whomever they wish freely and not be intimidated. I'm afraid that the legislation that our Texas legislature passed this session, it will interfere with that. And I'm sorry about that, but we're going to try to overcome it by educating people as much as we can.
Madam Chair, final question here. What do you want your legacy to be?
That's an interesting question. I just want to be seen as what I was. That is trying to work for my district, work for the state, work for our nation. I have some international programs that I work with. And just someone who got into office for the sole purpose of trying to see what I could add, what I could do to make things better. It's never been a glamour position. And I say to people all the time, if I made it look easy, I apologize. It is not easy. It takes all you got, but it's worth it because after all, this is our great democracy and we have the greatest democracy in the world. I believe in it. And I will always, as long as I'm breathing, work to see if we can get a little closer to what we all dream about.
Madam Chair, thank you for the time. Congratulations again on your retirement as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
The filing deadline is tomorrow. Anyone who wants to run for office next year, including the seat that Congresswoman Johnson is vacating, they must register by tomorrow evening. Matthew Dowd will not be on your ballot next spring. The Democrat from Wimberley dropped out a few days ago, suggesting he wanted to make way for someone besides white men to run. But Ross Ramsey is watching these ballots build. He is the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. Ross, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jason. How are you?
We're doing well here. You know, we have a pretty good idea of who is running for what, at least right now, but there always seems to be last-minute surprises for some office somewhere. Are you expecting any this go-round?
You know, I always expect the surprise. I don't know what it's going to be, but someone always shows up to run for office who you didn't expect. And somebody that you did expect, usually an incumbent who's been around for a while, you know, often turns out at the end of the day on filing deadline, which is Monday this time, they don't show up. So we'll see what happens in terms of surprises. I think the main ballots are pretty well set here. You've had some big players move in and out like Matthew Dowd and that kind of thing, but we know who's running for governor. We think we know who's running for lieutenant governor, goes down the race, goes down the row like that.
Yeah, and goes down to the clock as well. Let's talk about Texas Republicans. Obviously, they dominate state government, but now they're going after local nonpartisan offices like school boards and city councils. Why, and are Democrats doing that as well?
They're doing it for the same reason baseball teams have farm clubs. They're trying to build the next class of legislators they think will carry the Republican banner. If you get conservatives in office, even in nonpartisan office, those people often turn into legislators, members of Congress, and all of those kinds of things. The Republicans have been, are getting more active at this than they have been. Both of the parties have done this periodically over time, but I think right now the Republicans are trying to press their advantage in Texas.
All right. Ross, thanks a lot. Back to you in just a moment. Coming up, Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson cleaning up corruption at Dallas City Hall, and we'll be banning gas-powered leaf blowers in Dallas. Will that really make much of a difference? Plus, Austin needs more police officers. Mayor Steve Adler up next. It will take considerably longer than many expect to get additional cops on the street. You're watching Inside Texas Politics. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. Corruption has plagued Dallas City Hall for 20 or so years. We've seen federal investigations, prison sentences, but no real reform until now. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson fulfilling a campaign promise a few days ago, getting meaningful ethics reform passed unanimously. Mayor Johnson, welcome back to the program. Let's talk about the big top priority you just got passed, ethics reform that many say was way long overdue when we've seen the headlines come out of City Hall year after year, it seems like. Council has dedicated almost $200,000 for a chief integrity officer and for an office of inspector general. Two questions that I have for you. Why has it taken the city this long to pass meaningful ethics reform? And what specifically is now off limits?
Well, I'm not sure what took so long, but I know this, we needed it. And I campaigned on it, and I made the promise when I was elected that I'd do something about it. And I'm proud to say the Dallas City Council agreed. And we got to this right after we passed our budget. We elevated this to the top of our agenda, and by a 15-0 vote, we've done something that's truly historic. We're going to create an office of inspector general. That's the main thing that we're doing that's never been done in the city, which is a full-time investigator and or prosecutor to look for and to respond to tips about corrupt behavior, so they can bring that to fore and investigate it and then prosecute it and possibly even turn it over to the appropriate authorities outside of City Hall if it's serious enough. But we hope this stops it from ever going that far.
Mayor, here we are at the end of 2021. I want to ask about violent crime because the city has had issues in years past. Tell us about violent crime right now. How will 2021 compare to previous years?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really happy to report that the City Council reversed its position from last year, and in this year's budget has made some investments in public safety that I think are going to pay off even more next year. But just having a new police chief this past year who had an actual plan for reducing violent crime, I'm happy to report that right now we are down year to date in homicides, down year to date in aggravated assaults, down year to date in overall violent crime, and we are one of the few large cities in this country that can say that. Crime in most cities is through the roof. And in some cities, it's up 100%. Some cities have actually broken their all-time record for homicides already for 2021. And we are down in homicides at this point. So I'm hoping we finish the year, with little to no serious violent crime for the remainder of the year. But already you have to say that Chief Garcia's plan has worked, and it is working, and we're going to lean into it even harder next year.
Mayor, final question here. 18 months left in your term. Are you going to run for re-election?
I will make that decision at some point next year and announce that at some point in the future. But right now, I'm focused on getting through this term and continuing the successes that we've had. We've had a really, really strong 2.5 years so far. We've had our ups and downs because of the pandemic and a lot of challenges. But I think you'd have to be something less than honest to say that Dallas isn't on a great trajectory and things aren't looking good in this city. We're moving in the right direction in every aspect. So I'm very happy with the job I have, and we'll talk at a later date about re-election. But I'm real happy to be the mayor of Dallas right now.
Mayor, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Jason.
So you heard Mayor Johnson say that crime is down in Dallas, but in Austin it is up. Homicides there are at an all-time high. The city is about to put more police officers on the street, but the process is a complicated one. We spoke to Mayor Steve Adler there about it from his office at City Hall. Mayor Adler, welcome back to our program. Let's start with the challenge of hiring more police officers for the city. We had on our program a few weeks back Matt Makoviak. He said it was his understanding the city was going to hire 300 additional police officers in 2022. My question is that the target, and how does the city hire them and then move beyond that to increase the force to even larger than that?
Well, we need to fill some of the funded but unfilled police officer positions. We have a little over 200, and it's our goal to fill those as quickly as we can with the new cadet class curriculum that's been developed. I don't anticipate that's something that's going to be able to happen over the next year, just because it takes time for cadets to go through the training programs. We have a cadet class that's going to graduate in February. I think it's going to bring on 65 to 70 new officers. We'll immediately start, I hope, the next class. But it's 8.5 month class, and then it's a 2.5 month probationary period for the officers when they go out. And our classes have up to maybe 100 potential officers. So it's going to take time, even as we push it forward.
Mayor, let's ask about affordability here for a moment. Travis County, City of Austin, likely one of the most expensive places to live in the entire state of Texas. There are a lot of individual initiatives happening at City Hall, happening at the county commissioners at Commissioners Court too. But this is systemic, and it runs much deeper than that. How do you think that the city can address this systemically to lower the cost of living in Central Texas there?
Austin creates more new housing right now per capita than any city in the country. No one's even close to what Austin is doing right now. But even with that, it's not enough. And this really is our existential challenge. We have to be able to maintain the diversity, the people that live in our city, or we'll lose what makes Austin magical.
Well, it sounds like an existential challenge facing the city there. Are you concerned that this lack of affordability could really impair Austin, make it less attractive to companies that are looking to relocate?
Yes, I think that the housing price concern is important. It's a big concern for us. It's a big concern for the University of Texas. It's trying to attract students and the businesses alike. But it also goes to who we are as a city. There's art being created everywhere in Austin. And if we lose people, the diversity in our city, the creatives, the talent, we'll be a city that consumes art instead of a city that creates it. And with that, Austin will change culturally. So yes, I think that right now, transportation was the big issue 8 years ago. We've had some real important bond elections. We've now tracked Project Connect, which is going to be a mass public transit system in the city going underground downtown. With the summit plan, we have put on track the resolution of the homelessness challenge we have in our city. So right now, the challenge that remains that we have yet to figure out, that we have to do something about, is housing affordability and supply.
Mayor, a lot of work for the new year. We appreciate the time and good luck.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw has called out liars in his own party. Fellow conservatives did not like that. Part of our conversation next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross Ramsey is back with us from Austin at the Texas Tribune. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Bernadine Steptoe is a political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Ross, we'll start with you and the latest poll out from Quinnipiac University. It showed that Governor Abbott is far ahead of his Democratic rival Beto O'Rourke, 52-37. Obviously, plenty of time for Beto to make up those numbers there. The question is, can he?
The question, the first question I have is whether they're really this far apart. This poll's a little bit of an outlier. Most of the polls have had this race in single digits, but they've all had Greg Abbott ahead, and that's really the big question for the Democrats. Can they take him on? Will they have the money? Will they have the issues? And is this year just setting up to be a really bad year for Democrats?
And Bud, deep in the poll, it showed that only 22% of respondents, 1,200 or so respondents, only 22% were Democrats. What do we read into that?
Well, the telltale is deep. It shows that I think 31% are Republicans, 22% are Democrats. The rest are all now calling themselves independents. This would normally make you think it was wide open for a third-party business conservative kind of candidate. But then you look at issues, and for example, let's look at abortion. 50% of Texans line up with the Republicans on abortion. Those voters are not going to switch to Democrat.
So Bernadine, that would seem that it might be challenging, unless this is an outlying poll, that might be challenging for Democrats or for the Beto O'Rourke campaign.
Well, but keep in mind, it's still early. And there's a lot of time to catch up. And some of those respondents will not change their minds. But you do have a lot out there who will go on one side or the other. But I think that once we get down to some active politicking, some active campaigning, then we can sort of determine what the November election will look like. But as of now, it's just too early. And a lot of them, other than Abbott, he's been running for a long time, they're focusing on their primaries. And fortunately, I think that Beto would say he doesn't have or doesn't anticipate an active primary.
Yeah, and obviously after the holidays, people will be paying more attention to the races as well as we close in on the March primary. Ross, let's talk about Congressman Dan Crenshaw. He called out people in his own party when he was down in his district in Cypress, Texas. Called out liars, essentially. I think he said lie, lie, lie is what he told his group of supporters. Why is that causing so much backlash in his party?
Well, he found a really colorful way to say that sometimes your friends are your worst enemies, and some of those friends got kind of out of their noses out of joint about it. But, you know, it is a problem inside, you know, both parties from time to time. Inside the Republican Party right now, there's a lot of internal noise, a lot of family fighting going on that he thinks is getting in the way of business.
Bud, what do you take away from that?
Well, you know, he said that the Republican Party has a lot of office holders who are grifters, who are just political performances, political performers putting on a show. He is getting a lot of pushback from that from a lot of the groups the same groups that give Governor Abbott trouble, and the Gun Owners of America, and a lot of the Ron Paul groups that think that he's a little bit too close to the middle.
So as we close in on the March primary, Bernadine, what does this suggest about the Republican Party when you have people like the Houston congressman making comments about fellow conservatives?
Number one, that he doesn't anticipate an active primary challenger, right. But also is showing that, especially with Crenshaw, if you come after me, I'm coming after you. But he also went after a pro-gun group who said some untruth about him. But actually, it's refreshing to see that that not everyone is talking and saying the same things, and that they're defending themselves.
And that sounds like it in this case, definitely so. Guys, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. We're back again next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics, and we hope to see you again. Take care.